it'll be amazing to get into the LCS. I've been trying for quite some time.
And mousesports will be heading to the finals.
It's really important for me to come back here and prove that I'm better than I was back then.
So it'll be like my dream come true.
It would mean basically everything.
Well, we are kind of representing Denmark now, so I guess some is hoping for a full Danish team again in the LCS.
This could be the turnaround that Dignitas need.
I'm already 23 and that's pretty old, so it's maybe my last chance and I really want to make it.
I feel like it's now or never, so I'm going to give it my best to get in.
Hello and welcome to our special presentation of the 2015 European Challenger Series Summer Finals. We're broadcasting to you live from our studio in Berlin, Germany. As you can see, the teams are set up on stage, ready to do battle. And just a few minutes ago, mousesports was talking strats by the pool to make sure that everything was in order for them to play in this game versus Dignitas EU. Entered the building, well, some while ago because they wanted to set up. They have BrokenShard, of course, as their coach as well to help them do it here today. I'm Sjokz, joined by Mitch Krepo Voorspools and Martin Deficio as the top two European Challenger teams. mousesports and Team Dignitas EU go at it for a spot in the 2016 LCS Spring Split. Well, the journey to the finals, I was totally out of breath, so excited. The journey to the finals has been a long one, so let's pull up the bracket and see how these teams got here.
Yeah, we saw, of course, mousesports beat Gamers2 here in the semi-final. Very, very strong performance, didn't drop a game, and they were the lowest seed coming into the playoff here. Obviously, Gamers2 yesterday, they beat Denial, so they are in the promotion tournament, and now the loser today will join them. The winner goes straight into the LCS, of course.
Yeah, and obviously a bit of a closer match between Team Dignitas EU against Denial Esports netted them the win, and that's why they're here in the finals. And just to remind everybody, just what Deficio just said, the winning team go straight into LCS. Straight
into the LCS, indeed. We'll be deciding the team who will be automatically promoted to the big stage here through our match today in a best-of-5 between mousesports and Dignitas EU. And later tonight, the North American Challenger Series finals will get underway with Team Coast squaring off against the Renegades for a seat over there in the NA LCS. So jam-packed with action here today. And for an in-depth look at the Challenger Series Summer Split, the teams looking to go pro and VODs of past matches, point your browser to lolesports.com because it has all the info that your heart desires. Now, with these challenger rosters in mind, we want to get your thoughts. Hop on Twitter and tell us which EUCS summer finalist do you think is best prepared to compete in the LCS and why, guys?
I'm going to say mousesports at first here. I really like what they showed in the semi-final. I think some of the more simple strategies they were using and how they were controlling the side waves to set up objectives was very, very smart. And that's something even some of our LCS teams could learn from, because you don't have to be SKT to be in the LCS. And I think what mousesports are doing is the correct thing.
I echo the sentiment from Deficio, especially when it comes to a strategic point of view. However, I feel like Dignitas EU may have a little more talent on their roster, just raw, just individual skill. Obviously, we've seen plenty of times that potential doesn't always get you everywhere. However, if they can really get those strategies across, then perhaps they might be slightly better suited. But obviously, this series will prove us a lot.
Hey, what about Gamers2? How would they do in the LCS?
I mean, Gamers2 from the third place match or Gamers2 from the semi-final.
Yeah,
very big difference.
Point.
So we need to see more from them. Obviously, again, they're in promotion tournament, so we'll face either SK or Gambit, and they got to get past them as well.
We'll see. Well, we want to know what you think, which challenger team you think would do good in the LCS. Tweet your responses at LOL Esports, and as the series unfolds, we'll be talking about your answers. Don't forget to use that hashtag EUCS this time around. And now let's focus in on the teams in the matchup at hand, starting with mousesports, who are on the blue side in Game 1 with Beansu, Dan, Sayu, Cedrian, Mountain, and their coach Inero. Well, mousesports, what a transformation coming into the summer season here for the Challenger Series. They were last in the spring split, yet now they changed 3 of their 5 members, and it has been a lot better for them.
Yeah, obviously it's Beansu who joined, Dan joined in the jungle, and Sayu in the middle. And I think Dan is very interesting to watch. This guy has a massive champion pool. It's not always the smartest picks coming out, but he has a few pocket picks here and there, and he's so important for this team when it comes to the early game. And honestly, I think his performance here could make or break it for mousesports in this series.
Yeah, what he does on the field will matter, and also just the way mousesports will play the game. Will they go for the traditional playstyle that they have? If you're not familiar with mousesports, they're the second highest goal at 10 minutes team in the Challenger Series. However, by the 20-minute mark, that disappears. They fall behind. And usually you would say that's a bad thing. But it's not, because mousesports rely so heavily on neutral objectives, and especially dragons. In their games in the Challenger season, they have taken 34 dragons and only given up 20. So they're very focused on these objectives in the 10 to 20-minute mark. And they're one of the few Challenger teams with a distinct strategy. They have a playstyle that they play and they follow every game through. And that might be better than just trying bits and pieces everywhere compared to the other teams.
Yeah, and the really smart thing is just how this team, when it comes to setting up for objectives, it's both Dragons and of course Barons, it's how they control the side waves. Like they've really learned how to slow push waves and apply pressure other than with your players. So you have more time now to set up objectives, and a team has to always make up their mind, do we want to go defend our tower because it's being pushed by minions, or do we want to contest this dragon? And teams start slowly falling behind, and that gives them all their objectives over to mousesports.
Yeah, it definitely seems that they have a more coordinated game plan. They also went on a boot camp before the playoffs, and it shows. What else do you think defines their style coming into this game?
I think they have some very key picks, and then again we talked about a little bit fairly simple strategy, but smart, efficient strategy here. The key picks as well, like Corki Janna in the bottom lane has been very smart for them, and then also in the jungle, Rek'Sai is almost a must ban versus Dan, because that's the only champion where we really see Dan open up as a split pusher, weird enough as a jungler, and he applies side lane pressure, which then again also leads into these objectives here. So I like what mousesports are doing. They're not trying to be the best team in the world, but they're doing exactly enough to make it, or hopefully enough to make it into LCS for them.
I mean, Deficio pointed out right here, they have a very, very set style, but it's kind of neutral to passive, and they wait for the opponents to make a mistake, and that might be tricky against a lineup like Dignitas EU, or more skirmish heavy, and they just like going at it a little more.
Yeah, let's take a look at that lineup for Dignitas EU. They were actually the early favorites for automatic promotion. Wonderwear, Obvious, Sjokz, Kabi, Nisbet, and their coach, of course, Broken Chart. We know him so well. Well, they also went on a boot camp, and for mousesports, it was really good. For Team Dignitas EU, though, it hasn't been that well in the playoffs. That game versus Denial, we remember, but it hasn't been going well for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, if you look at how the season progressed for them, fantastic opening. The first 7 weeks, they were give or take 2,000 gold ahead at 20 minutes. However, in the last 7 games of the split, that devolved to 2.6k gold down. So that's a 4,600 gold drop on average in their games. That is not something, that's not a fluke. That is a systematic devaluation of your games, and something will need to change. Yes, they did lose Broken Shard for a couple of weeks when he went over to the Dignitas NA roster to help out there with the coaching facilities, but it needs to improve and it needs to get better because they're playing for a spot in the LCS right now.
One of the guys that could step up to the plate is their mid laner, of course, Sjokz, who has had some phenomenal games, but also sometimes didn't show up.
Well, I mean, he's a Danish mid laner, so we know he has the potential to become a fantastic player. But yeah, he's definitely one of the players to watch. He's one of the big carries on the team. Very aggressive, which can backfire. I mean, we have seen a lot of jungle focus against him. We could see Dan do exactly the same today. But like just leading up to this final, there's been times like this against Denial where Keyray would just catch him out multiple times, and he would keep falling for the same trick. That needs to be fixed. Otherwise, mousesports is just going to camp him.
Yeah, definitely a strong player here representing Denmark. And in addition to that, the entire team is pretty much Danish. So this could actually be the first time in European LCS history that we will see a strong support player from Denmark entering the scene. So that will be nice. Obviously, Dignitas EU waiting for that to happen, but time will tell whether it will ring through or not.
Yeah, time will tell. Something before we dive into the game, of course, we have to think about is the fact that 9 out of 10 players here have never had LCS experience here on the stage. Krepo, give us some more insight. Or you, maybe you've been on the LCS stage as well. I kind of forgot.
I mean, it's been a few years, so I'm fine giving over to Krepo.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I've played these type of relegation matches, try to get your ass in the LCS a couple of times already, and it is stressful because you really don't want to screw up, and at the same time, you're not used to this stage, you're not used to sitting in these temperatures, whatever. So many minimal things can change because you're so used to your online setup that you have your own desk, height, chair, anything can change. So we'll have to see how resilient these guys are, and especially how they adapt because we're playing best of 5 here, so it can go the full length, and then we'll have to see how resilient these guys are because they're so used to solo queue where tilt happens over there sometimes, so we'll have to see if they can bounce back from losses.
And just, you know, the mentality of, hey, if we don't win, we might not make the LCS. Like, we might not have a full-time job here being in the LCS. It's just so annoying. It's so hard for a lot of players. Obviously now, it's a little bit different. When we were trying to qualify, if you lose, you were out. You were in the Challenger Series. There's no chance now, obviously, for the loser here. As we mentioned, it is in the promotion tournament. Gambit and SK are waiting, so you still have a second chance to get into the LCS.
Yeah, but still the heat is on here. And for a word with the minds behind these teams looking to climb into the majors, we're going to check in on stage with Trevor Quickshot Henry.
Thank you very much, Sjokz and the rest of the analyst desk. I am joined here by Inero and Broken Shard, coaches for mousesports and Dignitas EU, respectively. Let's start by talking about your teams before we talk about some of the players. Mousesports, from spring to summer, you guys have just been getting better and better. Your most recent boot camp also made the semi-finals look good. So talk me through what has made mousesports so good that they're now in the finals.
Basically just our LAN experience, like meeting each other in person and just kind of bonding as a team has really helped us a lot. The boot camp, we got to fix all of our macro weaknesses. That's been our strength that we've been working on for the entire season. And we've just basically perfected that, and that carried us against G2. And hopefully the laning will come eventually, but for now we're working on the macro game so we can snowball games off of that, and it's done pretty well.
Well, it's great to hear a little bit of honesty there and some of the weakness. Talking about Dignitas EU and a little bit of weaknesses, for the first few weeks, it looked like DEU was the team that was going to win the finals. But in the last 3 weeks, we looked at some of the gold. You went from 2,000 gold up to 2,500 gold down at 20 minutes. What's been going on in the Dignitas camp that has caused the problems?
So when we first put the team together, it kind of gelled super well almost instantly. And we had a winning formula of combination of both laning, dominance, and macro strategy that would carry us through pretty much most of the weeks. I think the weaknesses started happening a little bit before I left for NA. Was not able to fully focus on the team, and I think not only did we start to get slightly worse and start kind of losing our grasp of what the strong meta was, other teams were starting to catch up like Mouse. They were working on their macro strategy, and there's not lie that we've been slumping, but I feel like after hitting that low period, we started coming back up from it, and we're feeling a lot better coming into this final. Sort of tried to fix as many of the problems as we can and prepare ourselves as good as we can for the Mouse final.
Well, I'm looking forward to the matchup, and as you say, you have a lot of tools to work with. One of the most hyped players in the Challenger Series here in summer is Sjokz in the mid lane. This is a guy that so many teams have been looking at, and he's also been absolutely phenomenal. What have you done specifically to get Sjokz ready for this matchup and on this stage?
There was a running joke back when I was jungling for this team last split that it was Sjokz 1v9, which I thought was kind of funny in the spring split because it really was me camping Sjokz and getting him ahead. Now, the team knows how to play around him, but we also know how to have him play around other players. Basically, my goal with Sjokz this split was to make him a more well-rounded player, not only a strong laner, but also be able to work with our really strong AD carry Kobe and our good top laner as well, Wonder. So we've just been ironing out all these small little solo queue weaknesses. He's been in the Challenger Series for almost 2 years now. He knows what it's like to play in a team, so it was just ironing out all the small kinks.
We'll see whether or not he can step up. Of course, Inero, I've just learned, former analyst for Dignitas EU before joining Mouse. You now have to coach Sayu against Sjokz, one of these touted mid laners. What's that like?
It's honestly, it's a little bit hard because obviously fixing a player's like built-in habits of how to lane and everything is fairly difficult. But since I worked with Sjokz and I've watched basically all of his games, spectate his solo queue any chance I can to see how he plays the lane. We've just been noticing like his little habits and trying to get Zio to pick up on those and be able to abuse them. And hopefully it works. It's difficult, but I mean, it's the only way you can fix a player and get them better, right?
Well, we'll find out whether or not your approach works. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the interview. If I can ask you to leave and join your teams for picks and bans, that will be fantastic. Now, before we head over to the caster desk, we are going to hear from Zayu talking a little bit more about his opponent, Sjokz.
I think he's mechanically very gifted, and he plays super well, but I think he has the tendency of going on tilt pretty quick if something doesn't go right. And I still don't think he's the best in Challenger. If we manage to just play consistent, then I don't think we can give Sjokz a chance of carrying.